Welcome to Friday night's video in our Master Series. This is the 80th video in our Master Series and the 11th video in our Mixing Concepts. Tonight we're going to talk about gain staging. So this is a very frustrating concept for most people that I've seen try to understand this concept, and it's okay. And you'll have to bear with me, I ramble a little bit in this video, because audio doesn't work like a test tone most of the time, where it's like, nee, and then I've got this other level that's, mwah, and I just mix all these together and I'm good to go, I don't have to worry about it. Audio normally doesn't work like that. So the problem is, the more dynamics you have in a performance, the more of a problem gain staging is. So just keep in mind that most of the time you're looking for a ballpark area to start from. And normally what I will do is, if I don't have a lot of dynamics happening in like my out front vocalist or something, and they're not really bad, whatever my out front thing is, that, I'll start with something, I'll use peak. If there's a lot of dynamics, then I'll go to root mean square, I'll go to LUFS or something like that, because I need a median, there's just way too much jumping around. I need some median to work by, and then to gain stage things underneath that, and you really kind of have to really, pull out some audio files, compare, get out your different meters, and really understand how they work and what they're going to try to tell you. But for the most part, it's a ballpark thing. There's a couple things you really need to take into consideration. The first thing is that when you're doing that, is that your ear doesn't hear the bass and the high end as well. So you'll be boosting those up. And your meters might tell you the bass is really loud, but your ears are telling you it's fine. Or if you got something going on between 5 and 10K and you're boosting the crap out of it, and your meters are telling you it's really loud, but your ears are telling you it sounds fine, that's okay. Just because your ears, that's where your ears sound. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the basic concept is, you've basically got a main instrument out front, like an out front vocal, supporting instruments like harmonies to that vocal. And keep in mind, those two can be a lot closer together than backing instruments. Like backing instruments might be the guitar and the bass, that their levels are going to have to be a lot farther away from this main instrument than these supporting vocals can be, because they can be right up on them. And also keep in mind, try to work in 1 decibel increments. Go down a half down a decibel, go down another decibel, and then when you start fine tuning, go up a half a decibel and down a half a decibel. And try to work like that, it'll make it a lot less frustrating for you, because the basic concept isn't that difficult. You got your front vocal here, and I'm working with peak basically, because my dynamics aren't, I don't have ridiculous dynamics in this production. So I'm starting out at, let's say, minus 9 dB. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to dot my guitar. I'm going to bring my guitar up to minus 7 dB, and then I'm going to start dropping it down. Minus 7, no, it's a little too loud. I'm going to drop it down to minus 8. No, that's still a little too loud. I'm going to drop it down to minus 9. It could be a little louder. I'm going to bring it up a half a dB. And any more fine tuning than that, then I'll get my automation out. And bass is a problem. So let's say you got your kick and your bass drum. Those can be problems, because let's say you got your out front vocals at minus 9 dB that you've chosen, and you start bringing your bass up. I will immediately put the bass at the same level. I'll bring the bass up to minus 9 dB also, because I know my ear doesn't hear bass as well. So I'll bring it up there to minus 9 dB, and sometimes there's been times it sounds fine like that. Yeah, that's fine. You wouldn't think so. My meters are telling me it's the same as loud, but my ears are telling me that it's not as loud. And it sounds about the same loudness as the guitar, behind the front vocals, and that's okay. But then I'll start from there normally, and I'll go down a dB at a time, and then fine tune with half dB up or down, and anything more fine tuned than that, I'll get out my automation. Try to keep it that simple in your mind, so that, it doesn't get complicated. And just keep in mind that they're ballpark figures. So basically, that, let's say that the concept here is why that it's not really, there's no science to it, as far as, well, there is. If you get really into your meters, that, once you become a really good engineer, that you'll really start to trust your meters a lot more, and you'll start getting into really understanding what's happening with your meters, and you'll be able to read them real well. But at first, just remember, try to pick that top level that you're going to, and come up 1 dB underneath it, and then start dropping down. Start dropping down, and then fine tune adjust with half dB up and down above that once you get it pretty close. and you should be able to get pretty close to what you want you to do. If you do that in stages all the way down, that you should be able to gain stage everything up that's supposed to be underneath whatever else is going on. You got front to back, right? So those are gain staging those up underneath the front vocalist or front instrument, and just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing is that if you start getting too close to zero, select all those tracks, bring them all down another 3 dB together, and then just continue on to save yourself a little bit of frustration. So the only other thing I want to talk about is basically automation. Automation is great once you've gotten to that point. Then you can fine tune with automation if you want to do some really super fine tuning to make sure your production sounds really good, because you might have some little thing going on that there's 1 or 2, 3 notes or something, or 1 bar that you want to put up a little bit, Really trust using your automation, and do each section as its own mix. That way that each section is seen as its own mix, the verse, the chorus, the bridge, the lead, whatever's going on, the breaks, the transitions, that they're their own mix. That way the dynamics between each section are correct, you've done them well, and the mix itself for each section is done well. And that will make your mix come out sounding so much better. You have to trust me on that, but you might get a little mad because you're going to have to really start learning how to use your automation well. And sometimes at first it can be a little frustrating, time consuming, tedious, and that's just a fact of life, Jack. So, but trust me on it, your stuff will come out sounding much better. So, really quick, let's get back to meters really quick. The frustrating thing about metering is that I'll normally say, let's say, unless I know that you are a really advanced audio engineer, that I am going to say, look at your peak metering, look at your root mean square on even your most basic DAW has that. Choose one of them to go with depending on how much dynamics you have happening in the performance. The less dynamics you have, the more you can trust your peaks. The more dynamics you have, the more you're going to have to trust your root mean square. And as you get more advanced, things, your meters, your LUFS and things like that, they're great once you understand them, because they work on the same kind of concept as like root mean square. They're basically the same concept, but you really want to get used to using those other ones first to really be able to do well. If you can trust your peak meters and understand what's going on there, and you can trust your root mean square, and they're normally on the same meter, even in an inexpensive DAW, and you get to trust those really well, you can mix really well by those. Later on, that if you want to start using your LUFS meters and things like that, I don't have no problem with that, and they're great tools. But if you're trusting your peak and your RMS and you're really making a distinguish between there, and you get to use them well, if you use those other tools and you really get out and you really want to fine tune a little bit with your LUFS and tools and things like that, and R128 tools and all that, that you'll be much more appreciative of them, and you'll go back and go, well, what does my peak metering, my RMS metering tell me in comparison to that? So you can really see what's happening to do a really good job on the performance that you're working on. So I hope that wasn't too frustrating, and I hope I didn't make that too complicated or not complicated enough. The biggest thing that I tell you about gain staging is just don't get frustrated, because it's a frustrating thing, because it's just not an exact science. It just really isn't. As you get better, you can trust some more advanced tools to give you some more scientific readings, but for the most part, that audio is very erratic, and most of the time it's not like a test tone. And so you really gonna have to get a ballpark like we were talking about, and then do any fine tuning. You hear little sections or little parts of a verse or parts of a chorus or something that need fine tuning, learn to use your automation and go in there, and instead of just going, oh, well, my LFUSS said that, and I can trust that and my other meters, get in there with your automation and fine tune it. Get in there and do your volume automation, do a little bit of fine tuning. It's okay, because, the more time you spend on that, the better the production is going to come out sounding, because you're going to be happier with it, and it's going to come out sounding more like the way you wanted it to. So I hope that kind of clears that up, and hopefully makes gain staging a lot less frustrating for you. Just remember, get some practice tracks, some vocals, guitars, bass, keyboards, some drums, some real simple things like some practice mixes or from mix contests, and just practice gain staging them in together. You know, if you can get a mix contest package, you know, that, you know, join a mix contest or get some free ones, or, you know, some practice mixes to work on, and really practice using your meters and listening and you trusting both your meters and your eyes, and really practice, you know, trying to gain stage and understanding what I'm trying to tell you, so that the better you understand it from practical experience, meaning you just utilizing it, the less frustrating it'll be. And when you get frustrated, you're much more likely to do these ballpark figures like I'm talking about and then run to your automation. Okay, I'm not getting frustrated. There's a problem there. I'm going to run to my automation. I'm going to make a little zip whip right there. Yeah, dude. All right. Good to go. And you'll get better at, you know, doing your mixing. So, peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this video. And don't worry, you'll get to see a bunch of it when we actually get into our mixing. But I wanted to put this mixing concept series together to get you thinking about these things and get you practicing these things. Peace, hope, love. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.